Welcome back to the channel here. This is the Shuffle Squad, and today we're going to be covering the meta forecast for San Antonio Regional Championships. We're going to be seeing a lot of decks come out in the North American side of these events here. It's going to be a huge event too, so I'm extremely excited to see what's going to shape up our meta after LAIC. I know there's been a lot of European regionals, and now we're moving back over on our side of the globe here to have probably the biggest regional to date. So again, we have lovely guests here for this meta forecast, as we do always, and I will go ahead and let them introduce themselves here. And first of all, let's start with you, Koopa. I want you to give yourself an introduction here on the meta forecast.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle, or in various parts of the internet, you might know me as Koopa. If you've watched the Super Smash Bros. Tournament in the last 10 years, I am the third of three casters to appear on the meta forecast. So happy to be here. Happy to chop it up with you two right before San Antonio is coming up. I'm very, very excited given how these last couple weeks of regionals have panned out. So I'm really, really looking forward to see how it's all going to go down in Texas this coming weekend.
Awesome. Very cool. And then also joining me here, I have Tyler. Tyler, why don't you give yourself an introduction?
Sure. I'm Tyler. I've been playing Pokemon on and off for quite a while. I started mainly competitive back in 2008 and stopped around 2012 and played casually until 2015-ish. And then I was playing WoW and poker for a living up until this season. Started playing Pokemon again. Won some smaller majors back in the day, but they don't compare to current day whatsoever. Obviously, having an okay season, not the best, but 28th, 29th currently, not too bad.
Cool. Awesome. Well, since it is getting close to the holiday season, I'm going to throw out another random question that's not Pokemon related before we start talking about all there is about Pokemon TCG in the competitive light. We're going to go through and tell everybody who's watching this, or maybe even listening as the video's playing, what your favorite holiday treat is, because the holidays are right around the corner here. Mine personally, I'm a cookie person, and I like coochie das, and that's my thing. It's like a fig cookie with frosting, so it's like the best Fig Newton cookie you've ever had. But I'm weird and I like semi-healthy stuff, so I had to turn my treat into something that's semi-decent for you. Kyle, what about yourself? What's your favorite holiday treat?
Yeah, I'll go in the opposite direction of you. I'm a big sweets guy around the holidays. It might not necessarily be like a holiday snack to most people, but for me, I always associate with the holidays. I love cinnamon rolls. Yeah. For years growing up, my mom on Christmas morning, we'd always have cinnamon rolls and coffee. So that's a tradition that is yet to be broken, amongst my family. So that's usually what I look forward to around the holiday times.
Gotcha. And Tyler, are you a pumpkin spice latte person, or you have a different holiday treat that you like to?
Pumpkin spice latte isn't bad. I'm not ordering one of those things. If someone hands me one, I'll drink it. And I don't even think it qualifies as holiday, but I eat them a lot around the holidays, oatmeal raisin cookies.
Ooh, okay, that's fair. I love it. I do like me a good oatmeal raisin cookie. Well, enough about treats here. We're going to start talking about the Pokemon meta. We're going to hop right into it. And the first thing I want to talk about, and I'll get everybody's thoughts on this too, is the return of Lost Zone box. Now, we saw the winning list from Christian Fontenot over in Stuttgart at that regional was the Lost Zone Radiant Charizard list. Is pretty vanilla as far as lists go. Did not include the Roaring Moon EX in the list, but alongside that in top 4, there was the super effective goggles or super effective glasses, whichever it is. That list was there. And now I think that list was insanely over optimized for the meta. We'll put it that way. But as far as some other lists, obviously we've seen Tord come out, and Tord also did play another Lost Zone box, did pretty well in this tournament. And I just feel like people aren't as scared of other decks, or maybe the inconsistency of Lost Box. And we're probably going to see some other iterations of how Lost Zone Box is going to shape up. I would assume in a meta this large too for San Antonio, it's going to be pretty big. So I know everybody here has been playing locals and cups. So what are you thinking going into the San Antonio regional? Kyle, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on Lost Zone Box right now?
Yeah, I think Lost Box, I think a lot of people were really quick to write it off. Once we kind of got into Paradox Rift, the whole Iron Hands of it all. Is this going to be the
Right.
death for these small basic decks? But you see results wise that this deck still continues to perform very, very well. Obviously, it took 2 of the top 4 spots this past weekend, and I know a lot of people were saying specifically Sablezard was like that one build of Lost Box, so like you're kind of falling asleep on it. I feel like a lot of people were leaving it out of their meta forecast, especially with Christian's list, playing the 2 copies of Devolution, being able to spread that Sableye damage once you get there, and then just shut down your opponent's evolution Pokemon and be able to take possibly multiple prizes at once. It's very interesting stuff. I think as long as this deck is around in format, it's always going to continue to be strong, especially given the way that I think it was Isaiah Bradner that made the point on Twitter that Torrance kind of like lost his mind and just started playing like all these like random concoctions of Lost Box decks, just kind of throwing it together, and it just happens to be working. I think he even called itself a Fiesta deck on Twitter, which I thought was hilarious. But no, I think as long as Sableye continues to be a thing, Jirachi can only protect you for so long. You only have a finite amount of resources to get that card back. There's this deck once it gets set up, and it's really, really hard to get it off its rails. And I continue to think it's going to be, a strong pick going forward. Whether it's the turbo variant, the Radiant Zard variant, or like we saw, Lost Tina converting very well into day 2 as well. That's sort of always the bridesmaid, never the bride's deck that we keep talking about every week. So, I think with a field as deep as that, I think it's hard to imagine this deck's not going to perform well in San Antonio.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my head's at looking at these Lost Box lists. I know that Radzard or Sablezard Moon, whichever version that you're playing that doesn't necessarily have the turbo engine in there, is very good into the meta if we look at it as a whole. But there's also the school of thought that maybe turbo or the Kyogre version, either way that you go, that's also a really, really solid version. Now, speaking of someone who's pioneered the turbo version, where we looked at the online meta, 6 months ago for turbo shoes, as we coined the phrase, Tyler, why don't you talk to me a little bit about the turbo side of things, maybe a little bit about Kyogre and how those pose into a meta that maybe is better formed for Sablezard?
So I think all the Warzone decks are gonna like fluctuate like pretty wildly in terms of which are the best and which are the worst, depending on how much Jirachi there is. Like, do people get greedy and not play Sableye like Torrid, or not play Manaphy like Torrid?
Yeah, that list was
or
hyper
I think
greedy.
like Sablezard probably is like the default like best one, whether that like is the vanilla version or the version with Moon is pretty good too.
Right.
It's probably like the default, like one of those 2 is probably the default better play for most events. But there can be like turbo boxes that are a better call from time to time.
Okay.
And Lost Tina can shine in some metas. I would say like either like Lost Tina is always gonna be like the middle one of the 3. Like either Turbo is gonna be the best like way to play Lost Blocks for that event, or Sablezard is, and then Tina is gonna be like fine. It's kind of like how that's gonna go.
Yeah. There's always that one that's kind of left out based on what other decks are doing really well in the meta, and I know that we kind of go down the road every once in a while. Kyogre's good, Kyogre's not good. What do you think about, because the combo of Manaphy and Jirachi is super annoying as somebody that's playing the Lost Box deck. Playing maybe that Gardevoir that's got both of those on the bench, or maybe the Charizard that's got both of those on the bench. And now you're looking at Kyogre as a card, as a tech spot. Are you playing Avery in decks like this? This is kind of a school of thought that we kind of bounce back and forth just to maybe make them take one of the two evils off of their bench.
I in any format that's respecting Lost Box, like any degree, I just think Kyogre is like not gonna be the way to play the deck.
Yeah.
Like, if people just like completely stop respecting it and they're just playing Manaphy and there's Jirachi and like that's the entire field, then like I can see Kyogre being good.
Right.
Like very good to that field, but like I don't think it's gonna happen very often anymore. I think people like were a bit off Lost Box at first because they assumed hands would like destroy it. Hands probably made the deck better some of the time. It's very good in Turbo. Like as long and other builds, as long as you have like a way to respond to it, I think generally you are like fine and it's just like not that bad. And so like people just weren't respecting boxes as much because they didn't see a reason to. They see it as probably like between like Tina and all the boxes, like what is it? Like they would see maybe like 15% mana share going to LAIC or something like that. And like they're like, okay, like maybe I'll play Jirachi, but like I'm not like gonna like for sure play Jirachi. And like now it's kind of just like if you're playing a deck that's like vulnerable in any way, you're probably just like playing Jirachi and Manaphy, and it's just gonna be like a nuisance for like. Sable's art is like kind of like better than Turbos at the moment because like how often are you realistically getting off a Moonlight Shuriken with like Manaphy and Jirachi?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like it can happen. Like they can like not be able to get it back, sure, but like I don't want that to be like a core like tenet of my strategy. I mean, Greninja does help a lot with consistency in the builds, but
just for the pure draw.
Zard's also just like there's a lot of 220s and 230s in the format right now. Like Zard is just good.
Oh yeah.
And you can Zard early with gates if you're playing the Moon version. Like even like the non-Moon version plays Christian was like playing double Raihan and a gate and a DTE.
Yeah.
Like he hit an early Zard. Like absolutely. So it's just like the decks are being built in ways they get early Zard. And like being able to counter catcher like the same turn you're like getting to 10 in a Lost Zone with like a Colress or like playing a Roxanne.
It's nuts.
Or like even just like playing a Clara, it just feels like so strong. Like if you're getting Radzard back with Clara and like attacking a Radzard and counter capturing something, like if you're probably winning that game.
Yeah, exactly. And now you touched on a card where I think that this is probably, aside from Kyogre as a tech in your deck to make your deck function better in the meta, I really, really like this. And I think this is the best card in any Lost Zone deck now because we did see it, last format pre-rotation when Lugia was big. The addition of Raihan back into these Lost Zone decks is probably one of the best, if not the best include that I've seen in more recent lists. I really have to say that Raihan is just like the peak of Lost Zone box. If you got a Raihan in your list, I'm sold.
I think in Sable's art it's very strong. In Turbo, it's probably not very good.
Yeah.
I'd probably play different in Sport or in Turbo.
Yeah, just like being able to cheat that extra energy back into play is just so strong.
I haven't played a ton of Turbo recently, but I feel like there's probably just better supporters in Raihan in that deck. But
yeah,
Sable's are like if you're playing like thin counts, it's good. Like if you're just playing one or two gates, like having double Raihan is like pretty insane. Or if you're like playing like a DT in a gate like he was or Christian was, like Yeah, both versions are just pretty good, and I think Raihan is good
Yeah.
in both. I think double Raihan's definitely better in the more vanilla version, and
Hmm.
like single Raihan's better in like Moon version, most likely, if you're gonna play one. And I think you probably
Yeah.
should. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think in Turbo the usage for it would be to have that checkmate of Iron Hands with one gate. So you could
Right.
manually attach Raihan and Gate
yeah,
all in one turn. That could be like the play for it. So I can see where that would be, the talks around having it into Turbo. But I do definitely agree with you that it is way better in a Sablezard version for sure, hands
yeah,
down. We're talking about hands here, and we're talking about all kinds of things, and we're leaving out one of the more important decks. And I've seen this deck start to come back a little bit more in North American regionals, in the online circuit as well. So, Kyle, what I want to do is kind of pass it over to you and let you give me your thoughts on how Charizard is. And, being as it did okay at Stuttgart, do you think that we're going to see a huge showing when we go over to Texas and we're looking at San Antonio's meta of the the enormous amount of masters there? Are we going to see a lot of Charizard this time around?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see like what like the three horsemen of this of the current meta is right now. I think the three most popular decks of Stuttgart were also the three most popular decks at Gdansk, in between some
Mm-hmm.
combination of Miraidon, Charizard, and Gardevoir.
Right.
Charizard didn't convert as well going into day two. I think it went from first to like fourth out of as many decks played. um,
Mm-hmm.
I still think Charizard is like it's really hard to sleep on a deck like that that's able to do so much, on its second turn, being able to attack for two
Right.
energies, having the built-in comeback mechanic in Burning Darkness. Obviously against Stall, that leaves a lot to be desired, but now you're seeing that, people are starting to tech for that with things like Minior and extra switch cards
Mm-hmm.
to play around that.
Right.
So I would be hard pressed to not say that Zard's going to show up, but it's at the same time it's like it converts decently well. It's littered usually without throughout these top 8 top 16s. I know one got top 8 this past weekend in Stuttgart. But it's tough. I think we're all still waiting for that that one concise list to come out, because before it was like, oh, it's Arceus and Zard and Pidgeot that works. And then it's like, no, now it's just
Mm-hmm.
Pidgeot, Zard that's doing the best. With the Entei and then 4 Sealed Stones. And then it's like, oh no, wait, B Barrel. How about B Barrel? Anyone have that one under bingo card this week? So it's like, I think we're and then that the other one that came out with the Cramorant in it that plays the 4 copies of Chorus, which is like, okay, that's sick. That's a nifty little
Yeah.
option as well. So I think it's another one of those cases where there's so many options to play this deck that it's going to be littered throughout that day 2 meta, and obviously it's going to probably be within the top 2 top 3 of most played on that first day.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's able to break through or not, that's still to be determined. But I would be hard pressed if it doesn't show up in numbers. I'm a Charizard believer.
Yeah.
I think that deck's
Yeah.
very, very good. Cold take.
Yeah, and I mean, between Tyler and our very own Zach Lesage here and the Shuffle Squad, huge Charizard believers and pioneers on how the deck has been built. We even look over at the Limitless crew, and we look at Robin Schultz and their top list. They had Rotom V in the list now too for extra draw on that first turn. You've got a Forest Seal Stone target. So in those dead turns, because you are using Pidgeot, it is really nice to have that Rotom V there. And, it also is an Illuminion, so you don't necessarily have to get Iron Hands for 3 prizes
Yeah,
when
that
it
feels
gets
good.
taken down. So it feels great. So it's not just sitting there. And I mean, as far as, other techs that we see going into the deck, we do see Lost City coming back as a stadium card in these lists, which is really good, playing into those kind of awkward matchups like Gardevoir EX and the Lost Zone box decks. I feel like if you're a really good, solid Zard player and you're putting Lost City down against a Lost Zone deck, chances are you're probably going to be winning that match because they can't chain their important attackers for that chip damage. And even decks like the Sablezard are playing a super scary tech now for, the Pidgeot version, which is de-evolution TM. And that's something I feel like we have to talk about a little bit more and consider. Now, kind of panning off of de-evolution TM, one of the biggest decks that we're kind of scared of going into the San Antonio Regional is Rapid Strike, because they are now using this de-evolution TM to their advantage, because Inteleon might not do the most damage, but if you're looking at these small Pokemon, you're looking at pinging damage with your double gunner ability. And then, you obviously have your Gmax rapid flow onto some of these, big chunky Pokemon that are out on the field, whether they're a support Pokemon now or they're just the main attacking Pokemon. Then you hit them both with a de-evolution, and now you're taking prize cards and just wiping those Pokemon off the board. It is such a strong deck in the meta. And you really don't take too many terrible matchups out there. Obviously, getting hit in the mirror with Diev is probably not the thing that you want to see, but it is definitely something that I think that going into San Antonio, you're going to have to respect this deck, right? It is super fast. It really loves to hate on those smaller HP decks like Lost Zone Box, Gardevoir, even again talking about Charizard. It's pretty scary to play now a Charizard into Rapid Strike if you know what you're doing. It is a puzzle to put together, so we aren't going to see a huge meta share. We are going to see a smaller meta share of Rapid Strike deck because it is a big brain deck. It's going to take a lot of actions to get to your end goal for what this deck is doing, but it's definitely something, again, you're going to have to consider when you're looking at the grand scheme of a meta. Do I know how to play this deck? Am I going to know how to play it? Am I going to know when to hit my de-evolution TM? Am I even going to get set up? And I think that that's the worst part about Rapid Strike, right? Is your initial turns. Turns 1, turns 2. Am I able to get set up? Is my Remoraid getting knocked out? Because, without your Octillery, it's a struggle. You can make it work, but it's definitely a struggle. So that's something that, it's scary to play into. You could just put 2 Urshifus down and play into Miraidon too, and now you're a fighting deck. So it's got that pivot that you can make it either, that your water spread deck, or you can make it a fighting deck. Now, going off of, making it a fighting deck into Miraidon, I know that Miraidon's been taking quite a few prizes off of Rapid Strike, if you've been noticing, because now if you're able to just ping into an Inteleon and then hit it with Iron Hands a little bit, it's a scary world out there for Rapid Strike. But to talk a little bit more about Miraidon, I'm going to kick it over to Tyler. Tyler, do you think it's the Miraidon, or do you think that we're just mid-riding with this deck here?
Well, Rapid Strike, I think, is significantly better than it was last format. This format,
yes, I agree.
It's still underplayed. It should be a higher meta representation than it is. It's probably better than both. It probably has better spreads than both Charizard and Miraidon do, by quite a significant amount. The main thing that scared players from the deck is it's traditionally a lot of its matchups have been very polarizing, where it's either when you hit a matchup, it's you're okay, I might crush this deck if I don't brick. And then you'll hit decks where it's well, I lose unless he bricks, and that's just kind of how a lot of Rapid went.
Yeah.
And also I don't I think it can be higher meta share too, and I think it will be eventually, because the deck, it is hard to play, but the lines don't change. The math stays the same for everything. So once you get the number of reps in with the deck, they're you. Doesn't matter that it's complicated. You've done it 20 times now. You know how to do it. You can execute it. You don't have to think about it. Whereas Lost Box is constantly kind of you're constantly being put in decisions that you're not sure what decision you're gonna have to make, right? You're taking Comfy, you're taking 2 at the top. You don't know what 2 of those are gonna be. at all, and you have to lost zone 1. It could just be like 2 cards absolutely necessary for that matchup.
Right.
Whereas like Rapid, it's like, yes, it's hard, but like it's also very linear. Like what you're gonna do is not gonna change. You're gonna do it over and over and over again. You just have to figure out like what the proper like route is in the first place, which is the complicated part. So I think it will rise in measure over time, and it is like probably like a top 3 like raw straight up deck.
Yep.
And a lot of it's polar. Like it has a lot more like top end matchups than low end matchups on the polarized spread right now. Like it absolutely like destroys like Zard, Sable Zard, like turbo boxes. Miradon can be weird if you start Intel. But like you can also Turo, which like Turo also fixes like another fundamental flaw with the deck is like if you just open Kazam and like they knew you were just playing 1 rope before. So it's like you have to keep attaching 2 automating and retreating or playing your rope, and you're just kind of like stuck. Whereas like Turo like fixes like that kind of fundamental flaw the deck had before, which is like also like it's part of what includes like improves the match and spread a bit. Like kind of like you also beat Cloth real bad too, but like I don't know how much Cloth you're gonna be playing against.
Right.
Rest in peace.
Like you take like not as great as those decks, but a pretty good Guardian matchup, like solid. And then on the fringe end of your good matchups, again, like you take Goldango pretty well, like probably close to 60%. And then like your mid matchups are gonna be like Tina and like MT Valiant probably. And then like your like first bad matchup on the like bad matchups for the like DT Mew. And you're usually playing Tomb now, so it's not unwinnable. Especially if you like actually win the coin flip and go first the first game and just get Tomb down the first game.
Yeah.
And you get Tomb on turn 1, both game 1 and 3, and just lose 2. Like you have a solid shot at winning that set.
Right.
It's like and like game 2, even like if you're only going first one of the games, like that one game at Tomb is gonna do a lot. Like it's like you're much more able to get there now versus Mew. Especially if they ever have to attack into a Teleon and you're playing Turo, it's just like you can like erase the whole turn. So like it's much more winnable than it used to be. It's not great, but like it's not as brutally bad as Fusion is still just like it beats you like horribly. Like you're like on the low end of the polar matchups now where we're at, it's probably like Fusion, Stall. And then, like, if you get fringe with a, like, Roaring Moon destroys you randomly. But, like, it does, like, bad. But I don't know how many Roaring Moon you're going to be playing if you're, like, winning the first couple rounds.
Exactly.
Like, you're probably safe.
Yeah. Oh, unless some crazy Roaring Moon player just shows up and they're like, "I've got the spice."
You never know. They might just slam down and you don't like.
I've come from the future.
Yes.
Like, I don't think the deck's very good, but like, if it just starts the optimal hand every game, it can just beat you every game.
Well, I mean, we're talking about polarizing matchups. Do we think that going into a tournament this big, Miraidon is going to have any polarizing matchups here, or do you think that just hands is going to carry it all the way through?
I think Miraidon is probably like it was very good for
we'll try to be
there.
Nice.
But now it is the exact mid deck.
Okay.
It has like if instead of like a top 10 list, you took a top 11 list, it would be 6.
Mm-hmm.
It can't. I don't think if you made a top 10, 5 or 6 would be fair.
Yeah.
I think 6 and a top 11 list would be exactly fair. It's like your very good matchups are like Turbo and Pow, which like how many are you playing, man?
Right.
Like Pow, like maybe you're lucky to hit maybe 1. Like Turbo, maybe you'll hit 2, maybe. Yeah. And then your good matchups, like you do have a pretty good Guardian matchup. If you get the early hands and like and you get Path when like they're going to be able to start attacking with Guardy, like it can be a solid matchup if you don't just like pop off at the beginning. Like
Yeah,
they're
it's
probably
hard.
still beating you. It's like not that great of a matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And like Moon is like like an even matchup, sort of. Moon's
Yeah.
probably a little favorite.
There's a potential to
Because they
take
got
a
230s
three.
because they have to attack with me, like
Exactly.
the 3 energy attacker. And then like your bad matchups are like Entei, Valiant, Fusion, and your awful is like Stall, DTE, and Rapid.
Yeah.
And then like and then everything else is just like mid, just like flip a coin, like figure out who wins the game, basically. Like it's like it's just like the deck is not it's not it anymore. Like it's like overall results are like a little like better than it makes the deck appear a little bit better than it is. Its conversion rates are absolutely horrific. And if you scroll down, the players that are like finishing Maridon with not like at the bottom end are just like they're the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Like that deck is not
Yeah,
it
there's
right
a lot
now.
of 6
Like
2-1s getting into that day too.
Yeah, like it's not like I don't know, like if like Neil, like his list for LAIC was like kind of cool with like the 18 and the lightning double hands. But like he hit 9 Gardevoirs and like 5 Pows. Like I don't know how real that was, if we're being honest. Like I don't think it's very.
And it
like
has no late game.
Juho got first at LAIC and 9th at Ganans. So it's like I think like his like for him to be doing that consistently well with the deck, and like not that he's like a nobody or anything, but like he's a fairly unknown player. Like it's like like there wasn't people drafting Juho on their LAIC drafts.
Right.
Like you know, what I mean? Not to disrespect the man. They just like weren't like thinking like, oh, that's the guy who's gonna win the event.
Mm-hmm.
But then he gets first and like 9th with a Mariah list that's not like very strange, but it is different. Like it does not run Judge. Like it just like plays all Iono. Like I think for him to like do that well back to back events like that has to be close to the optimal Maridon 60.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like better than this like testing other variants and like looking at like online spreads to like kind of like double check things like says it is. Like maybe just like Judge is just not good in the deck anymore, and you just want all your supporters to be like draw 6.
It's really not
or 7.
I feel like Iono is the better supporter, and I know that when we were in Sacramento and like Cyrus was working on that Maridon list with us with the Luxray, you know, she was definitely like, we need to play more Ionos, and I was on, you know, we got to play more Judge path. That's how you win games, right? That's how it's just what happens. But this deck, I mean, Anil's list specifically, there's hardly any comeback, right? That's the problem, is you just go hard turn 1 and you're just ripping things off the top and you're ready to go. But when you get Iono'd by that Gardevoir player or by that Charizard player in the turns that it hurts, there's zero comeback. And that's where like the Iono is really good, because even if you're behind, you're drawing more cards now.
Yeah,
and there's so much more to it.
And then, like another like fundamental flaw with this like Anil's, we're just not even running ones that are that fast. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that fast was like a good call for LAC, like the first event of like a format where like lists are gonna be unoptimized. He's gonna be able to exploit a lot of players playing like unoptimized like slow Rigardi lists and this type of things, which is like what he did, like straight up like he had 8 or 9 Guardies.
Yeah,
like actually. And just like I think he went 7-1 into them.
Yep.
And the only problem with this type of list is like the real fundamental flaw is like you want to choose to go second, but like if your opponent's playing Path, and they go first and play Path, and you don't just have Beach Court, you lose.
Right.
Immediately, like game's over. and you can't choose to really go first with that deck. Like
No.
you'll have to if your opponent's playing Pav, but like that's like the flaw with it. Like it just like Path makes that whole deck kind of like eh. And like any deck that's just like a bunch of big Pokemon with like any way to remove any damage, it's just like
right.
not really like it's rough for it.
Yeah.
It's a like Juho doing that well like back to back events with the same exact 60. Like that just has to be like I'm not saying it's perfect list or anything, but like that has to be closer to the perfect Miraidon list for this format than anyone else is currently, I believe.
Yeah, and then just the dig to find the DTE. I think DTE is. I was sleeping on DTE. I'll be honest. I think that DTE was bad when I looked at that list at first. I'm like, no, there's no way. Like just doing 100 for Amp You Very Much, that seems really bad. Even though like the 120 wasn't that great either, but I think it just has merit in the matchups that it counts. And it's just one less card that you have to dig for. Or maybe you can save your Forest Seal Stone because you have a DTE. So there's different routes, I think, that you can take when you are playing DTE. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's a very acceptable one. I haven't played enough games with it to like say like if it should be a 14 energy or not. But like it's felt like fine. Like I haven't like drawn it too many times, been like, well, this is unfortunate. This is
right.
Double Turbo. Like you do still play 13 lightning.
Can power up that genome hacking.
Right.
The only thing about cutting the DTE and making just like a 14 lightning, it would let you give up like it's like one Raichu, right? It would like let him beef up some kind of blind. But I think I like the DTE.
Yeah, and then the other problem with Miraidon and why I think that it's not as well posed is just because Radiant Charizard's in so many decks. It's not only in Lost Zone, it's in regular Zard EX. And it's in this next deck that we're about to talk about. We didn't talk about it on last week's Meta Forecast for Stuttgart, but we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about Entei Valiant. I know that we saw a lot of players playing it in Stuttgart. The conversions were okay. But you know, it did pretty well at LAIC because it was a surprise deck. We had some of the Shuffle Squad people playing some Entei, or thinking about Entei Valiant and ended up playing the wrong kind of Valiant, but we won't talk about that right now. Let's talk about the real deck.
I was looking back at our deck list.
Yeah.
That we like were testing throughout the day for Entei Valiant. And the second to last one, we're like, this is really good, and then we made a couple of changes to that one, and then like all of a sudden, like after like 2 more hours, we're like, okay, this deck sucks. I'm not playing it. And I looked back at the second to last list, and it's 59 out of 60. Looks like that second. I'm just like, okay, that's why we thought it was terrible all of a sudden because we already had the correct list.
Yep, exactly.
And I think the one card difference, we talked to the guy after the event, and he's like, actually, if I thought of that, I wouldn't have played that. It was just cutting the second boss for Serena. So you have like another fire energy like
discard.
Discard one.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Like, and versus most decks, like it still can get something. Like you bring something up, give me something, and it's like another card that like the deck is prone to getting Iona bricked. It's just another like draw supporter. Like,
right.
It just seems pretty good. Like. Because the deck really feels like you only want one boss, but the problem is by the time like you're ready to use that boss, like it's usually like in the discard, and that's not happening.
Exactly.
So it's like you want the second one, but then like 2 bosses almost feels silly, and you're like, I think maybe Serena. It's like a weird call,
a decent call. Now, Koopa, I know that you play a lot of like single prize style decks. I've seen you play some string cheese. I've seen you play some claw.
I'm a rogue deck connoisseur.
Yeah. And even in Chen Pao is not necessarily a rogue deck, but you
cannot call Goldango a rogue deck. That's like a top. That's like right outside the top 10.
Yeah, no.
Like That's just choosing to play a subpar deck. Let's be honest. You're just like, I like this guy. I
Yes.
want to play
Yeah.
it.
He's cool.
Like that's what
He
we're
looks like my
arriving at.
middle school snack, and I need to play
Yeah.
him. But
Like Claw Goldango. It's like let
yes.
me pick the very bottom end of the competitive
Yeah.
decks.
Hey, we had a cloth mirror in this
They're
last.
probably, to be fair, they're probably better than Roaring Moon. So.
That is very true. But what is your experience playing into Entei Valiant with decks like these, or have you seen some scary Entei Valiant decks? Is it a real deck? Is it something we should be or have on our radar at least going into the San Antonio meta, Kyle?
Yeah, they kind of just like piggyback off of what we were talking about, like these like kind of like lower end of like the competitive spectrum decks. Like I play, I like to, I've been playing a lot of these decks, for the last couple of weeks. I like Goldango, been trying to play Goldango. I like Cloth, been playing a lot of Cloth. I ran into Entei Valiant a couple of times. I've ran into Iron Valiant specifically, like when people were searching to see, it's like, oh, is this the new ping card you play in Urshifu? Which that has shown to be that's not necessarily the wave. Inteleon and Urshifu are just a match made in heaven. They're too good for each other. But Entei Valiant itself, I think it's one of those. I played against it, once at a local, and it's effective. But I'm looking back into something that Jesper Eriksson said when he posted he played Cloth into Stuttgart, missed 2 of his winning ins, just barely missing day 2. And he mentioned something about like this deck is kind of loses a bit of its steam once you lose the element of surprise. Once people kind of start prepping to how to okay, this deck is no longer just like a funny haha like content creator deck of the week. It's like actually something that can actually like function and stand on its own 2 legs and win you a bunch of games at a regional. And I feel like Entei Valiant is sort of in that same sort of like fringe, like once you've kind of seen it, does the magic kind of wear away? Like it converted about the same from day 1 to day 2, but I don't think it didn't have like that high of a meta share to begin with anyway. It's just one of the, but like I was watching a couple of stream matches and people are like very carefully, not benching a lot of Pokemon. They're really taking away, the one crux in his deck is that your only real attacker is Entei. So
Right.
if you can avoid, I think we talked about how like we're in a meta right now where people are opting to go second a lot more than often. We're also seeing a meta where people are starting multiple Pokemon at once and not just putting down a singular Pokemon.
Yes.
So I think once you take away the tachyon bits of it all, you prevent yourself from getting turn 1 donked. If you're playing these like lower level decks, you're probably instinctively just going to put down 2 basics if you have them, just to save yourself, the ability to play the game. I think a deck like I think Entei Valiant is still, it's solid. It's not I wouldn't say it's a bad choice going into a regional because it's very simple. Your game your lines don't change too much. But at the same time, it's like once you kind of figure out what's going on, it's like okay, you can kind of adjust your game plan on the fly and really cut that deck off at the legs. So I think it's cool, but I think it's I don't know if it's ever going to take more than just like that real like fringe bottom part of like the other percentage meta shares.
I will say though, like Mew VMAX kind of farms that deck.
Yeah.
A lot of the Rapid Strike decks farm that deck. It's the other Yoga Loop deck, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
It's Yoga Loop
the
at
other
home.
deck that can do. Yeah, exactly. It could do the thing, maybe not as well as the other decks, but it can still do some things. It's a little scary if you're a weaker or newer Guardy player. Don't necessarily know the lines into a deck like that, but it's still like if you're a solid Guardy player, you know your lines. You know when to plant down your Scream Tails. You know what's in your deck, your energy counts, how you're getting there. You see it coming out of the gate, and now you're putting down multiple Pokemon. Maybe not, your Ralts. Or you're playing all 70 HP Ralts, so not giving your opponent that chance to just pop off on your 60 HP Ralts. Now, I think that's really what is selling that deck is. Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, yeah, I think it means probably looking at the VIP version, but non-VIP, it's like,
Exactly.
Mewing to get another bait, just like
Yeah.
another random basic. That's really sick.
Yeah, you just put something else out there and it's fine. It's okay now. Everything's fine. Somebody gave us a hug and now we're good to go. We can play into the Entei Valiants.
It's like kind of the point of retreating into Muse, like trying to hit the EIPs if you're not playing. It kind of defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
Like you get candy, I suppose, but like you're still only playing 2 in most builds. So I don't like it. It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, it's
my
just
opinion, at least.
it's
And
one
also
of those.
it also helps you fit Jirachi.
Yeah. That's the thing is Jirachis are now heavily played in not only Lost Box, it's played in Charizard. It's played, everything is playing the Jirachi. Even the good Guardy decks that I've seen out there, they're playing Jirachi. Another thing that really hurts Entei Valiant and why I don't think it's a great deck right now going into such a huge tournament is that Path to the Peak is also really, really good right now. And it completely annihilates that deck. Going, turn 1 path down there, you can't find one of your outs, and there's no way to exactly search your stadiums other than just hoping that you draw into it opening hand. It's just done. That deck is toast. So talking about more path decks here, I want to move into a touchy subject. I always bring it up that it's one of those things. But Giratina had a huge showing over in Stuttgart. Our Lord and Savior Giratina V-Star. We've been playing it. Tyler and I have been playing it forever and a day. We had to put it down and not pick it back up. Had to chain it up like a werewolf style in the basement so we couldn't hurt anybody else with it. But we're looking at Giratina, and the reason I feel like Giratina in the European meta into Germany there was heavily played is because I think that it does take a really good stall matchup. You have Shred, right? In the
Giratina. I mean, it has an incredible stall matchup.
It's an insane.
It's phenomenal.
I played stall. I'm a big stall player. Played it at a challenge. I sat across from somebody playing Giratina. They didn't necessarily know how to play the matchup, thank God. But I was shaken. I was like, no, I don't want to hit this. Out of everybody here, I hit like the one of 2 Tina players in the room. And it is scary. I mean, if you go back and you watch the LAIC matchup with the stall player, it was a bloodbath. Giratina just stomped all over it, had all the outs. It was a slower game, yeah. But Giratina is also a pretty decent matchup into Charizard EX. So do we think that Giratina's success in Europe will translate over into North America, Tyler?
I think Giratina will do fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll do great. I think it especially versus like Sablezard builds and builds that can play more of the one Prizer build for a longer portion of the game. Like that play Jirachi, like you just like loosen that Mistina. Like you just fold.
Yep.
And like that's really about it. Like if they like it's like especially Sablezard is real bad. Like it's bad. Or if they're playing Jirachi, it's like honestly, what do you really do? Do you start like if if you have to start attacking them the Tina kind of early because that's kind of the issue that's forced. And if you're attacking with basic Tina, which is killing everything in that deck, like you're just like opening yourself up to get like either Radzarded or like they're playing Moon.
Yep.
They can moon you, but if you're forced to evolve, like to protect yourself, it's like you can run out of energy real easy. So it's like between not being able to like
for
most Giratina lists playing like 1 Cramorant, which like I think 2 might be better now, but like it's 2 feels awful, 1 feels awful in the deck. Like almost all variations of the deck feel like truly awful.
Yeah.
Even though I think if you're gonna play a Lost Box deck, if you pick Giratina, you picked this. You didn't pick the worst one for the event, but you didn't pick the best one.
That's true. That is
true. So it's like you probably picked like the 5th best deck in the field if you picked Tina.
Yeah.
Like between the 4th and the 6th best deck, essentially, is kind of what you picked. Yep. And you're gonna be getting that pretty much every time.
Yeah.
and occasionally someone will high roll and like top 8+ with it, and everyone else will like finish top 64 or bust basically.
I will say the Stuttgart list that did well, Alberto, their list did look like one of our old original lists where it had that heavy disruption supporter count back in it, and so that was really cool to see disruption go back into a Tina list again, and you just kind of build it. You abyss seeking. If at first you don't succeed, you AB seeking your way into the lost zone and try to find.
No, like I think you were playing Tina, you're not playing 4Jet, you're capping, and like
Yeah, exactly.
4Jet's also like one of the main reasons it's like incredible against stall,
right?
Because like you do enough damage to kill it without like there's no tool. They have to keep getting tools,
right,
and like they can't misfortune sister away your jets.
Yeah.
You just can't like you just don't want to keep you just like don't want to like waste the attachment ever.
Yeah,
just like
and they're not going
it's
to.
like if you hit like even like one of your switching items is generally enough to like
you're
get
good.
there. Like if you get 2 or 3, like you're getting there like 100%. Like and like most lists are playing like what, like 5 switching outs with I think Alberto's like 4.
It was like
but
4
like,
just straight switch carts, jet energy, that's it. Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing
so
crazy.
I think most are like 9 switch outs total, but like 8 is also like fine. Like he like versus like a block Lex, he's likely to like be able to play at least 2 of those. The items, and like he's like you're taking a res at a time, so eventually you're running towards all your energy. It's just like if all your jet energy are less res, then
that's it.
Otherwise, it's all right. Especially because you get like you can evolve once the pop start Requiem. Like later on, you can start getting more greedy, taking like one shots. By evolving, because you're like, I'm not gonna have energy anymore. Like it's not like really in the cards, so I'm just gonna like take one shot every single turn. Exactly. I think I think the version with like the dark energy and Roaring Moon is like semi interesting. It's kind of like double star Requiem. I don't know if it's any good or not. I think it's kind of interesting though.
Yeah, just having
Maybe I'll try it.
We were on the 2 energy build. We went back to the 3rd energy. We got thirsty. We put the water back in, and now we're getting dark with it. We got to put the that other kind of energy in.
Yeah, there's just too many like Miraidon other decks like that.
Yeah,
that, like
capitalize on
like
what you're doing.
You're just getting free like shurikens off. So like Malplaying Water, it's just like sure you don't get to play the 4th grass, but like you're at that point like you either have to not like you'd have to go to jet instead, and like you're playing yourself then like you can 3 grass is fine. It's just like I prefer to have 4, but like you can play 4-3-3.
Yeah, I guess in a heavy Mew meta that you're just like rubbing your hands together, you're like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah, like it makes your Mew matchup like more tolerable. Because if you're not playing Tomb, your Mew matchup like with no water is
it's shaky.
Yeah,
it's not only shaky, it's like I almost want to sign the slip. Like when I sit down, like if they get a more turn 1, I kind of just want to sign the slip.
Yeah.
Like,
they're like, oh,
I don't really see a prize mapping.
Yeah.
Here, like I just don't see one at all.
Yeah, I'll leap a couple times, no big deal. You know, we're good, we're chilling. And then
it's just like I don't know, like you have to like have them with a lot of things, a lot of turns in a row. If you're playing no water, and no tomb. If you're playing water or tomb, like you have like you can there's Altoon play too for sure. But without either, it's like that matchup is like abysmal.
Yeah, it's terrible. But you know, we talked about Giratina, we talked about some stall here, some splashes of Mew in between, and now this is my favorite part of these meta forecasts is where we're doing the Rogue roundup here. Talk about what deck is Rogue that we think that can do well in San Antonio here coming up. So I'll kind of kick it off because it is my favorite part of these meta forecasts. But I think I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I feel like this is Chen Pao's time. I feel like Chen Pao could make a really decent comeback. Chen Pao hands, we haven't seen it for a little while. It's been taking a nap in hibernation here, getting ready for the winter season, and now the ice is out. So we can see Chen Pao come back in. I know Diev Spray or Diev TM is kind of bad for it, but I feel like if the lists are a little bit more optimized, maybe we're putting the third candy in to the list. We're playing a 3/3 backs caliber line. Maybe Chen Pao can do well again. We'll see if we can overcome the path to the peaks out there. So that's going to be my pick for Rogue Roundup. Kyle, what about yourself? You're a Rogue enjoyer. What do you think might do well?
Well, my heart wants to say Cloth because that deck rules. But I still think we're still waiting for that perfect 60 to get ironed out because it loses so hard to Gardevoir and like all these other like really popular decks. Like having a decent Charizard matchup, and it's like it does get it does decent into like the big EX decks and all that stuff. Going on a limb here, can we call Lugia a rogue deck because it's performed so poorly these last couple of weeks?
Guess. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I'll go out because I'm a big Lugia enjoyer. Like that was my deck for a long time into rotation. I still think as Archeops is one of the most busted cards printed in the modern in the standard format right now. I'd say Lugia might be due for another run again just because it's done so poorly these last couple of weeks. Like I kind of compared Lugia's big win in Sacramento to like Michael Jordan after he came back from playing baseball to win those championships. Yeah. So I'm still kind of waiting for I'll my heart wants to say Cloth. My soul says I think Lugia is due for a decent one this coming weekend.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that happening. Tyler, what about yourself? Any spicy rogue decks you've been seeing out there that you want to do well?
Well, I guess like the rogue deck that I would say is like it's not exactly a rogue deck or anything, but like it's like the least like Law Zone Charizard EX is like no Sableye, like just Cramorants, Charizards, because like people are gonna respect draw team over this week, and you just build a consistent like Charizard EX Cramorant deck, and just like run people over. Like that's the best roguish deck for the week, I guess, most likely.
I will say honorable mention. I've seen shout out to Joe over Omnipoke. I did see a Lost Zone Charizard EX deck that I think that's kind of cute. I think that it could do okay because it's kind of got the best of both worlds. You get your single prize attackers, you get your big 330 HP Pokemon. You don't necessarily care too much about Diev TM because you're not evolving all your Pokemon at once. Which is kind of nice. So maybe they can just pop you for the one prize using the TM for one turn, and then you turn around and do it all over again. I think that would be kind of cool to see that actually happen. But that's what I'm gonna say is a deck like that might be kind of cool.
Like I think the standard deck has been like one Sableye, one Psychic, which is like it feels fine. It feels like all the deck it really needs. As long as you like get them like reliably at some point, it's like fine. But like I feel like at that point, like next week I might just say like forget it and just like add 2 consistency spots. Like if you're playing the Greninja version, like you're probably playing 2 water, like make the 3rd water, like have a more consistent Greninja. And something else, maybe if you want to switching item even, or another Pokegear if you're playing less than 2.
Right.
Like just try to run people over. making clear Cramorants, so your Charizard kills everything. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I think the list over
and you can play Radiant Sword if you want to. I suppose.
Yeah.
If you want to just like, if you want to go like, if you build like a real straight consistency version,
that's what I saw.
With, like you can just like play like 6 fire or like 3 jet and just like straight.
Yeah, you just pop,
and,
just
play,
put
like,
your
Radiant
Radzard down and then just evolve and just like KO. There you go. There's my first Charizard, and then I'm gonna recycle it back and I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna do it with my big Charizard to end the game. That's
I think the deck is like maybe it's better than Evozard, perhaps.
Yeah.
But one of those two is definitely the worst version of Charizard.
Yes, exactly.
Like the best version of Charizard definitely contains Farorgan. Like, I don't particularly like the Rotom build. I know people have been playing it.
Yeah.
I also think Zard has been underperforming an incredible amount, and that might be why. Like, why did we really switch to the Rotom build? There's no other deck introduced to the meta that should really be destroying us like this.
Yeah. They're like, it can work for
think
Stall, it can work for us too, right?
The level ball for the 90 HP Melian is like cute and all, but then like now, like if I'm on a clock that if I don't get Manaphy, I can get Radiant Greninja. Like I might as well like hell the Nesball, like I know a Mander after they do it at least. Like I don't know, like
even with DF now, people are putting the 90 HP Charmeleon back in, and I'm like, I don't know about that.
I don't like it. I don't like the level ball. But
what if it's the only one I have?
Maybe like I just like am stuck like playing old Zarman, but like I just want Pidgeot V and I want Lumineon V and I want those Vs and I want Emerald Leave me alone. like I'm gonna play Collapsed or Turo to get rid of the Lumineon, and that's gonna be my deck.
Yikes.
Like it's just like have an outlet to get rid of the Lumineon, so if they don't like immediately like boss hands it, then you can get 3 prizes off the board, and that's cool. I think like there's some lists that are like even playing there's like the Rotom version, and they're just like not playing a Turo or a Collapse. And I'm just like like honestly cannot believe it. Like I understand like Lost City is like good and all, but like I think if you're playing on it fixing your Guardy matchup, unless you're playing 3, it's not really fixing anything.
Yeah.
Most lists are playing like 2 and 2 vacuum. If you're playing like 2, it's like I kind of still want a Lost City to like versus like turbo type builds and stuff like that to like Lost Zone like their Moon or whatever. But like I'm fine with like one being a Collapse Stadium if I can't fit Turo in as a supporter or something like that. Or even if I just I want 5 bumps. Like ideally, like I do want 5 bumps. Like I can see 2 and a Collapse. Like I think as long as you're making your list like as consistent as possible, like your Guardian matchup like is not bad. Yeah. It's like pretty much 50-50. Maybe versus the best Guardian players, like it's a 55-45 maybe versus the best ones. But I also feel like the better Charizard players make it a 50-50 as well. So like versus players. Because like I feel like a lot of those are like the good Zard runs. They do just beat all the Guardies. Like it's not like it's a terrible matchup. Like if you set it faster than them and you force them to whiff, like even if you're just playing like Collapse Temple as your stadiums. And like you force them to whiff like a bump one turn, like with like Iono, like Temple, they can't bump it and reverse kill you. They like just lose on the spot. Like there's stuff like that where it's just like there's a lot of different like lines you can take with the deck that like you're like this guy like he's got the like you can kind of like I don't know if it's like a poker thing or like it's like kind of just like. But one thing, it's like I can kind of tell when this guy's got the reversal energy in his hand, and I'm just like, well, I'm definitely just Temple Ionoing this guy. He's played his other reversal. Like I'm just gonna put that on the bottom of the deck, and that game's over. Like I don't know. Like I don't know if that's like Morgan will pick up on that than like I think, but like I don't think. It's pretty easy to tell when your opponent like is like very scared of you playing something, and if the only thing you can really like interrupt them with is Iono, they're afraid of you playing Iono, so get Iono.
You caught the glare off the gold reversal energy off the top of the dome.
It's like if they're afraid of boss, they're gonna be acting differently than if they're afraid of Iono.
I knew I should have worn
my Iono ends the game. Iono like they're like. Okay, this is like probably ends the game, so I'm sweating a little bit. But they're like, if they're like sweating boss, they're like sitting there looking really defeated. Like they're like, if he has it, I just lose.
Yep.
And like those are like the two reasons you can make a Pokemon. Really, that's all. That's what there is going on. Like, I mean, like I guess there's some other stuff. Like you can tell someone has like an air hand sometimes when they go first, they like draw pass,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, like it could have a chorus or two, but like I feel like this guy just has like a 7 card hand of nothing. Like I'm just not gonna play Judge. Like,
Yep. Yeah, they're not doing
I don't
anything.
know.
They're going real slow. It's an easy
Like
win,
maybe that's like
easy tell.
maybe that's just like completely incorrect, but I feel like a lot of the time like it's pretty obvious what your opponent like has going on. Like if they got something brewing or not. Like people need to work on like their game pace because like a lot of people just like they be giving like the whole recipe away the whole game. So like that'd be like the number one Pokemon school I recommend is like yeah, you don't have like keep like a super serious face or anything, but like just don't like have these like crazy reactions to things or like your opponent's turn starts and like you put like both your head in your hands like you're like all nervous. Like maybe you are nervous, but just just please don't be. Like just try not to be, man. Because like it's like from what I can tell, it's like you're really sweating an Iona right now. Like
Yeah,
it's just like the new cartoons that Pokemon Company put out with the Oddish comes to life and they're just the opponent's just staring at the reversal in their hand. But you know that's all well and good. Now that we know for San Antonio, just make sure you got a good poker face. We'll be there with our visors on, making sure
it doesn't have to be great. It just has to be okay. Because like most people are gonna be great at reading faces either. It's just like don't telegraph it and just be like I mean with the boss thing, like everyone knows like okay if I boss I'm winning the game basically. Yeah. Unless it's like weirdly they prize all their energy or something, and they're just like, then you're just like, oh, well, like something weird is happening.
Everybody should just watch Rounders before going to San Antonio.
Exactly.
Don't watch Rounders. It's a very degenerate movie.
Second, don't watch Rounders. Listen to this podcast instead.
Don't do it.
Rounders is like about the man bets is the whole bankroll. He does not follow proper BRM. Fine movie. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. We'll call it a 7. Is that proper bankroll management? No. Very aggressive bankroll management is 20 buy-ins for cash games, and that's very aggressive bankroll management. It's just he just has one bullet the whole time. Yeah. That's crazy.
Stay tuned. That's crazy. Stay tuned for our movie podcast.
Yeah, there we go. You're learning about Pokemon. You're learning about movies. You're learning about your finances, kids. So stick around for all these metaphors.
Yeah, look, if you ever pick up like. Do not follow the bankroll management. Google a bankroll management guide. There's plenty of them out there that are good. Yeah. And like for your risk tolerance and like what like you can actually like realistically afford ever. Like follow proper bankroll management. That is the number one thing. If you play things and you don't follow proper bankroll management, it even like follows in Pokemon. Like if you're just going to too many events that you can't afford to go to. Yeah. It's like every event is going to be incredibly stressful, and you likely aren't going to be playing it optimally because you're going to be more and more stressed out, and like you're going to be more and more results oriented. Yeah. Rather than just being like, okay, well, if I lose this, like, if I don't do well this regional or this entry or like whatever, like there will be another one that I go to.
Just eating not like peanut butter and jelly for the next 3 weeks.
We're done. We're done here. Like. Yeah, it takes the stress off. So, like, staying within, like, just kind of the means in general, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
Pokemon.
I was going to say that's the number one rule going into this regional. It's going to be a huge regional. We're all really excited about it. And that's where we're going to close things off here for this meta forecast. As you know, I'm PJ here, managing the Shuffle Squad, but you can always catch me here on the channel. You can catch me on Twitter. You'll be able to see all of my socials down below. I do also offer coaching on MetaFi, so you can always catch me there. I'm going to rewind that here, but I'm going to kick it off to Kyle, where can everybody find you out in the wild? If you want to give any shout outs, now's your chance here.
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on Twitter at KoopaNJ. I am one of your talking heads on the late night TCG every week for the Shuffle Squad on the NA side of things. So you can hear me rotating in with Victor Ong or Emily Lyric Foreman every Wednesday. But yeah, follow me on Twitter. I post about tournaments I go to, both Pokemon and non-Pokemon related, and sometimes I, take a picture of myself drinking coffee in the morning, if you're into that sort of thing.
There you go. Perfect. All right, awesome. And then Tyler, we'll kick it back over to you. Where can people find you out in the Twitterverse, the interwebs, the wild?
There's honestly no point because you're gonna have to learn how to my last name. And that's just,
yes,
that's too much. I should have typed it.
Yeah, we'll type it in the description here.
Nobody's gonna get that. Nobody's gonna get there. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Medify. The same issue. It's my first and last name.
All right.
So just put it in the description. I mean, if you search the Shuffle Squad, I'm pretty sure I come up.
There you go.
That's good enough. You can get coaching from PJ though. He's pretty good.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Well, either way, we're excited that you've listened all the way through to all of our awesome thoughts on these meta decks, and hopefully you got something out of it. But as always, we will catch you next time on the Shuffle Squad.
Hey trainers, tired of having too many cards lying around? I know that feeling, and I know what a hassle it is to try and sell those cards. But selling bulk is now easier than ever with TCG Bulk. Find tons of potential buyers in a single place. You just download the app, look for the best buyer near you, and carefully pack your bulk, ship it, and you get paid. It really is that simple. Turn the cards you don't want into the cards you absolutely need for your next deck. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.